Today we're going to be doing Module 2, Lesson 14. The objective is to round to the nearest 100 on the vertical number line. So yesterday we were rounding to the nearest tens place. Now we're rounding to the nearest hundreds place. Okay. Today you're going to need either your online whiteboard or your whiteboard dry erase marker and dry eraser. And we're going to follow the teaching style where I do it. We do it together and then you do it on your own. First, we're going to start with some fluency. So we're going to change 11 tens to our standard number. While we're doing this fluency, you can pause the video until you have your answer and then press play once you have your answer to match it with mine. 11 tens. So we would write 11 and then add our 0 in the ones place. We have 11 tens, which is 110. We're going to go ahead and continue to do that. So like I said, after each example, make sure you pause, come up with your answer, and then press play to check it with mine. First is 19 tens. Nineteen tens would be 19 with the 0 in the ones place. So 19 tens equals 190. 20 tens. 20 tens is a little more tough. We have to do our 20 and then put our 0 in the ones place. So 20 tens actually equals 200. 28 tens. 28 tens would be our 28 with our 0 in the ones place. So we have 280. 30 tens. 30 tens would be 30 with the 0 in the ones place. So 30 tens equals 300. Let's remember we're treating this whole number as a tens. Forty tens. 40 tens would be 40 with our 0 in the ones place. So 40 with the 0, 40 tens equals 400. Okay, so now I want you to put down your whiteboard and I want you to watch my example. It's going to look very similar to what we did yesterday, except this time we're rounding to the nearest hundreds place instead of the nearest tens. So I am going to start with my vertical number line, a bottom number, a top number, and a halfway point. The number I'm rounding is 132. So I'm going to look in the tens place. In the hundreds place. And I have a 1. I'm going to keep that 1 and just put zeros in the tens and the ones. Okay? Because I'm looking for an even hundreds. Okay? Now I'm going to take that 100 and I need to go up one more 100. Well, 100 plus 100, or 1 plus 1, is 2. So we have 2 hundreds. So a 2 with a 0 in the tens and a 0 in the ones place. So I know that the number 132 is somewhere in between 100 and 200. Now I need to find my halfway point. This is going to be a little bit different than yesterday. But for the halfway point, I'm going to look in the hundreds place, and I'm going to keep that number. And I know when we're rounding for the nearest tens, I said it always ends in a 5. When we're rounding to the nearest hundreds place, your halfway always ends in 50. Okay, so we kept the 1 from the hundreds place, and then we end in 50. So the halfway point between 100 and 200 is 150. Now that we have our number line, what we're going to do is we're going to add our hash marks. And instead of counting by ones like we did yesterday, this time we're going to count by tens. So down here at the bottom, our first line is already there, which is 100, 110, 120, 130, 140, 150 is already there, 160, 170, 180, 190, and then our 200 mark's already there. Now we need to find where 132 is. So when we were counting by tens, we were at 100, 110, 120, 130. So I'm going to label that. Next would be 140. Well, I know 132 is between 130 and 140. So I'm just going to plot a point there right in between, trying to make it a little bit closer to 130. And now I just have to round. So 132 rounds to, well, it's below the halfway point, okay? I can see that my point is below the halfway, and if it's below, then we round down. So we're going to round down to our bottom number, which is 100. So if we're rounding 132 to the nearest 100, 132 rounds to 100. Okay, now that you have watched my example, we're going to do this one together. Remember that you can pause the video while I'm writing if you need time to catch up. So we're rounding a 3-digit number 286 to the nearest 100. Start by drawing your number line, your vertical number line. You're going to need a bottom number, a top number, and a halfway point. Remember to pause the video if you need to. So, to get our bottom number, we're going to look in the hundreds place since we're rounding to the nearest hundreds. There's a 2 there. So my bottom number is going to be 200 because we're going to keep that 2 in the hundreds place. And then we're going to have a 0 in the tens and a 0 in the 1 spot. Now my top number needs to be 100 more. Go ahead and fill it in if you know what your top number should be. The top number will be 100 more. So we have 200s plus 100 is 300. Okay. So we know 286 is somewhere in between 200 and 300. Now we're going to do our halfway point. Remember, when we're doing halfway, we're going to keep the number that's in the hundreds, and then it's going to end with a 50. Next, we're going to add our hash marks, and we're trying to figure out where 286 goes. So we're going to be counting by tens. So I'm going to be looking at the tens place and thinking about how I need to stop when I get to 280. Okay? So let's start doing our hash marks. There's already one at 200, 210, 220, 230, 240. There's already one at 250, 260, 270, 280. I'm going to label that. 290, 300. Remember, pause the video if you need to catch up. So I know that 286 is somewhere between 280 and 290. About right there in the middle. We need to figure out what 286 rounds to. Does it round up or does it round down? Well, our point is above the halfway mark, which means we round up. So we're going to round up to that top number, which is 300. So 286 rounds to 300. All right, go ahead and put those whiteboards down again. I'm going to show you another example. This time we have a 4-digit number, but we're still rounding to the nearest 100. So I'm still going to start by doing my vertical number line. Make sure you're watching this one, and then the next one we'll do together. I need a bottom number, a top number, and a halfway point. Now, we want to have our bottom number be the nearest tens place. So we're actually going to chunk that thousands in with the hundreds. Rounding to the nearest hundreds place. So we're going to kind of make this into 13 hundreds. Okay? So we're going to do our 13, 0 in the tens, 0 in the ones. Now we're going to take 13, we're going to add one more 100. 13 plus 1 is 14. Keep a 0 in the tens and a 0 in the ones. So we know that 1,387 is somewhere in between 1,300 and 1,400. Now we need to find our halfway point. Just like before for our halfway, we're going to look at that 13, okay, our 1300s, and we're going to keep that and end with a 50. So the halfway point is 1,350. Now we need to figure out where this number is on our number line, okay? So I'm going to look all the way up to the tens, and there's that 8 there. So we're going to want to stop when we get to an 8 in the tens place, okay? So let's go ahead and do our hash marks, counting by tens. We're already at 1,300, 1,310, 1,320, 1,330, 1,340. There's already a mark for 1,350, 1,360, 1,370, 1,380. I'm going to write that in there. Okay, that's our 8 in the tens place. So that's close to our number up here. Next is 1,390. And then our top line is 1,400. So I know that my 1,387 is somewhere in between these two hash marks. I notice that that's above my halfway point. If it's above my halfway, I round up. So I'm going to round up to the top number, which is 1,400. So 1,387 rounds to 1,400. You'll notice that in all the times we're rounding, these last two digits are always going to both be zeros because our top number and our bottom number both end in those double zeros. Okay, go ahead and pick up your whiteboard. Let's do this one together. Now we have 1,320. So go ahead and start by drawing your vertical number line with the bottom number, top number, and halfway mark. I want you to pause the video and try to label this number line with the numbers before you watch me do it. And then check your answers with mine. And then if you need to change it, you can. Okay, so you should have your numbers on there already. For the bottom number, I'm going to look. I've got 13 hundredths, so I'm going to keep 13 hundredths. Now I need to add one more hundred to get my top number. 13 plus 1 is 14, so I've got 14 hundredths. And now I need to find my halfway point. I just take my 13, I'm going to keep that, and add a 50 at the end. My halfway point is 1,350. Pause the video if you need to fix your numbers. Next, we're going to do our hash marks. We're going to count by tens. So I'm looking in the tens place, and I'm going to want to stop when I get to that two tens. 1,320. So we start at 1,300, 1,310, 1,320, and 1,330, 1,340. We have a mark for 1,350. 1,360, 1,370, 1,380, 1,390, and we get to our top line, which is 1,400. Well, you may notice that this number is actually right there on a line. So I'm going to put my point right on the line where 1,320 is. Pause the video if you need to catch up. So we need to figure out, what does 1,320 round to? Does it round up to 1,400 or down to 1,300? Go ahead and write in what you think. Pause the video if you need to. So our point is below the halfway mark, which means we round down. So we round down to 1,300. 1,320 rounds to 1,300. Okay, so very similar to what we did yesterday, except now we are looking at the hundreds place instead of the tens place. So now you're going to have an IXL skill to work on, which is rounding to the nearest 10 or 100. So you're going to kind of have a mix of both. Remember, when you're rounding to the nearest 10, and I suggest you keep your whiteboard handy while you're working on these. Okay, I'm going to do two examples. One is rounding to the nearest 10 and one is rounding to the nearest 100. Okay, when you're rounding to the nearest 10, you're always going to have numbers that end in 10. Okay, they're 10 apart. Your halfway point is always going to end in a 5. And it's going to keep that same numbers down here. When you're rounding to the nearest hundreds place, your numbers are going to have 2 zeros at the end. And your halfway point will end in 50 instead of 5. Okay, so that's the biggest difference that you're looking at when you're doing the number lines. Then once you have the number lines, you just figure out where you're plotting your point. If it's above the number line, you round up to the top number. If it's above the halfway point. If it's below the halfway point, you round down to the bottom number. If it's right there on the halfway point, then you round up. Okay? Remember, if you're holding your balloon, if we have 25, okay, so we have 21, 22, 23, 24, 25. We let go of our balloon, so it goes up. So once we get to that halfway point, we have to round up. Okay? Go ahead and begin.